Hey everybody, thank you so much for clicking on this video. Today we are back with another TikTok roundup, everyone's favorite video of the month. These are clearly the first words I'm getting out this morning. We have 12 videos to get through and chat about today, and we're gonna keep it super simple. We're gonna go, is this video a net positive or a net negative? Meaning that I'm gonna be looking at all of the different nuances of the video and deciding, in my opinion only, if this is a net positive on the fitness industry or a net negative. Basically, is it doing more harm than good? So let's dive right on in. Holy shit. Okay. This is Alexia Clark. I think she has an app and sells workout programs, maybe some nutrition stuff. Anyway, let's talk about this. This is a trend called propaganda I'm not falling for, meaning she doesn't believe in these things. Sun causes cancer. As a skin cancer survivor specifically, this one kind of pisses me off. I think it's in this video here. I broke down this entire part of my childhood. I had a melanoma when I was 16. I ended up also getting 3 inguinal or groin lymph nodes taken out as well. And I don't know, this kind of just pisses me off. Obviously, like everything in moderation, I just went out to the park this weekend and spent a few hours out in the sun reading. I'm not against being in the sun, but I think you also have to understand your own background and genetic makeup. I'm obviously white, white. I'm half Irish, half Italian. So yeah, my skin has the capability of burning. And we also have plenty of years of studies that back up that excess sun can cause skin cancer in certain demographics of people. I am one of those people. Intuitive eating. I feel like I'm just gonna keep plugging videos. I do have a video all about intuitive eating. Intuitive eating, in my opinion, just gets misunderstood because one of the steps in there is education around nutrition. And a lot of people like to ignore that step. So intuitive eating, I think, gets a bad rap because people aren't properly educated in what it actually means and how to actually implement it successfully. Cardio to lose fat. God, again, I feel like we're picking one little piece of the puzzle and we're not looking at the big thing. So look, here's the thing. If someone comes to me and asks me how to lose fat, cardio is not going to be probably in my answer at all. But if we zoom out and look at the big picture in terms of different habits that we want to build to support fat loss, number one is going to be nutrition. You just need to make sure that you're in a calorie deficit, meaning that you're taking in less energy than you're expending. And then all of the other things under it are also going to help support that goal. Are you strength training to increase and maintain your lean muscle mass? More muscle mass on the body is going to raise your metabolic rate, so you're going to have a higher maintenance. Are you sleeping well? So much of how our body changes happens when we sleep and is determined on what happens when we sleep. So that's something that I think a lot of people overlook. How much are you walking or just moving throughout the day? All of that is going to be energy out. And then of course we can talk about cardio too. Cardio is just going to be a tool and a part of it should be part of anybody's life regardless. But yeah, if you have a fat loss goal, there's no exception there. All food is created equal. Who's saying that? 6 hours of sleep is enough. Again, I don't know who's saying that. No one that I've heard is saying that in the fitness space. 7 to 9 hours is typically the sweet spot. Women traditionally need a little bit more, but again, everybody is different. A glass of wine a night is good for you. I really don't know what year is that one pulled from? 2002? I've talked about it plenty. All of the updated recommendations from the World Health Organization and the CDC, everything now points to none of the benefits of alcohol outweigh the risks because there is literally zero moderate amount that will not cause health risks. And this is the big difference, right? If we look at, let's say you love Oreos. Oreos in moderation, meaning if you just have an Oreo here and there, studies have shown that with ultra processed food, in moderation, you can avoid health risks. Alcohol, even if you have a glass of wine once a week, that will produce negative health outcomes. That's the difference there. 12-week fitness programs. Why? Why don't you like those? Okay, raw milk is bad. Jesus Christ. Okay, I'm no expert on raw milk, but come on. I feel like people, for some reason, think that pasteurized milk is putting all these chemicals in it. You're just boiling it. GLP-1, we're not going to get into this whole discussion right now. I think that GLP-1s are a tool for certain demographics of people for weight loss, and then they're also a tool for people with diabetes. And most importantly, I think that it's a conversation between you and your medical team, and the shaming of people on GLP-1s is getting a little out of control. Cholesterol is bad. If your cholesterol is too high, that can be bad for your health. But on the flip side, if it's too low, that can also be good for your health. We also have two different types of cholesterol: HDL, which is your good cholesterol, and then LDL, which is your bad cholesterol. And basically, you want your HDL to be a little bit higher and your LDL to be a little bit lower. That's how I always remembered that when I was like studying in school. Root canals. Okay, I would never want to get a root canal. If my tooth was far enough back in my mouth, I'd be like, just pull that fucker out. Fluoride in toothpaste, Jesus Christ. And then energy drinks, I don't know, we're just gonna stop now. Look, all this content is doing is confusing people, it's pissing people off, and it's word salad on an old video of you working out outside from the back. This is a net negative. This content does nothing. It helps no one. It creates more confusion and just gets people to talk about your video online, and yeah. Let's move on. Yeah. I actually really like this messaging, and I want to talk about why. I get questions a lot of like, is this exercise good? Is this exercise bad? Is this dangerous? Is this safe? And often you see it with, honestly, a lot of movements like this, where like the spine is moving in different ways. We're moving with a lot of explosive energy. So maybe it's a position that you view will bring the body into a state of injury. We have to remember that an exercise is only bad or dangerous if your body is not prepared for it. So if you have never trained under load spinal flexion or that rounded forward position, yeah, your increase of injury is a little bit higher. I wouldn't start there. Let's take another example. Last month we talked about box jumps in one of the videos that we reviewed. But he was like, ladies, don't do box jumps because they're dangerous. So yeah, if you haven't jumped or like absorbed force in years, I would agree, and I would not start you with box jumps. But if you have a solid amount of training, I do actually think that the risk is worth the reward if you enjoy box jumps and you want to include that as a plyometric drill. If you're someone who hasn't trained that way in a long time and you're not used to absorbing force, I would start you on the ground. Specifically, I always call these like a drop cut. You're basically starting standing, and then you're just going to split the floor and absorb force between both feet. Then I'm going to move into pogos probably. So a little bit springier, a little bit more repetitive in terms of like the absorption. So we're just kind of building that tissue tolerance. Then I'd move into like probably a reset jump squat, so you get kind of that groundedness in between each rep. And then I don't know, we can move up to like a real short, like 8 to 12 inch box jump, just see how it feels. And then we can move up higher, and then you're there. You know, I used to make this mistake really early on when I started coaching of like demonizing certain movement patterns or exercises. If you go back far enough, you can probably find some of those videos. But we have to remember there aren't good or bad exercises. There's not dangerous or safe exercises. It really comes down to what your body is able to handle in terms of force or movement pattern or whatever. It's a scale or a spectrum, if you will. So I'm going to say this is a net positive. Let's look at the next one.
If your weights don't go heavy enough, or maybe the gym's super busy and the weight that you want to use is taken, try using the rest pause method. Rest pause method is an intensity technique that gets you close enough to failure to have that stimulus to build muscle, no matter the weight, which is the cool part. Your first set's going to be your primer set, and you're going to take it all the way to failure. If the weight you're using is super light, it could take lots of reps. Once you finish that primer set, you're going to rest for 10 seconds. And then you're going to go to failure again. And this time around, it's going to take less reps than the first time. Rest for 10 seconds once more, and then you're going back for your third set. You can do as many sets as you want, but each set you're getting less and less reps closer to failure. The reason this works is because we're getting effective sets very quickly, not resting 2 to 3 minutes in between each set. Hope it helps.
Let's break this down really simply because for the most part, what she's talking about here, this is actually more of a strength endurance style of programming. What you see there is high rep, typically lower weight simply because the reps are so high. And then your rest is going to be 30 seconds and under. Specifically, the adaptation that's happening here, we are training primarily our slow twitch muscle fibers. So these are our endurance fibers. And you're basically just training those fibers to stay active and contracted for a lot longer of a period of time. Now, with this style of programming, you absolutely can get some degree of hypertrophy. A lot of this is going to come down to how many sets you're actually doing, how many reps you're actually doing, and what your current strength level is, and like what the weight is that you're lifting. So this is not a bad option per se if like you're in this scenario of you only have, X amount of weight at home, or the weight that you want to use at the gym is not available. But in my opinion, if your goal is to build muscle mass, I would just get some heavier weights. Mainly because this is going to take you what will feel like years to finish your workout. Like, here's the thing. If I'm doing a single arm bent over row and I only have access to like a 10 or 15 pound dumbbell, I'm probably going to be hitting like 50 to 70 reps. You know how long that's going to take on each arm? And then I have to do it 2 more times? That actually like sounds like my personal hell. I don't know if the video is still, I think I privated it because I privated all of the review videos. That's a topic for a different day. But when I tried out hybrid calisthenics workouts, which I did really like, the only issue that I had was that I had to do, I remember this for the glute bridges, I had to do like 200 reps of glute bridges. I was so bored. I was like, this whole workout took me like 2 hours to do. Now, I understand that like not everybody has access to unlimited weights. I would definitely recommend, like if you're looking to invest in something at home, checking out Facebook Marketplace. If you do have a little bit of money to spend up front, a set of adjustable dumbbells can go so far. But then, another option is like, can we get a little more creative with the programming? Maybe at this point with the weights you have access to, hypertrophy or like max strength is just off the table and we want to focus a little bit, did I just have a stroke? Maybe we want to focus a little bit more on like stability and, just different types of programming options. So instead of a single arm bent over row, maybe you try like an incline plank 3-point row or a bird dog row. Or maybe we play with the tempo, really pushing the eccentric. I don't know. You definitely, like you have options. If you don't have a ton of weights, this is definitely one of them. I personally would just hate doing this. That being said, I do think this is educational and it's helpful and it gives people a solution to a problem. So I'm going to say it's a net positive.
You can jump instead of weight training when you really are weight training, when you jump instead because you're accessing the forces of the earth, putting resistance against every single cell in your entire body by jumping instead. We're accessing increased gravity, increasing gravity against our muscles, jawline to feet by jumping instead. So all you need is a rebounder. I love the Jump Sport 350 Pro. I also love the Cellar Sizer rebounder. You can find these rebounders at ijumpinstead.com, and then you can join us for free on YouTube and jump into our workouts and build your trophy body, jawline to feet, without a single weight in your home. All you need is a rebounder instead, so you can jump instead.
I feel like every time she started to lose us, she just flexed really hard to get us back on board. Jesus. Okay. Look, if you enjoy rebounding, do it. There's going to be some great benefits, including improvements with your cardiovascular system, coordination, probably like with your agility and like your reflexes, reaction time, but it does not replace strength training because it does not produce the same adaptations as strength training, specifically increased bone density. We'll get to that in a second. And increase muscle mass. I don't care how cut this woman is, how many times she forces her arms into the frame. She did not get these muscles from rebounding. I would put everything I own on that statement. So for bone density, the reason I said we're going to come back to that is because there are actually 2 main studies that have been done on like rebounding and bone density and seeing if there's like a correlation there. I'm going to take a hard stop and just remind everybody I'm not super well versed in reading studies. That is a skill that I don't really possess. So I'm reading summaries of other people who are qualified to interpret studies and then we're like playing a game of telephone basically. But there's 2 main studies. In both of them, they did end up seeing some increase in bone density, but the main issue that was pointed out is that neither study compared it to jumping on the ground. Like in one study, it was just like people who didn't rebound and people who rebounded. And then another study was like people who rebounded versus people who strength trained. And I think there was one other group. In that study, the people who strength trained did have more increase in bone density than rebounding, but rebounding still had some. But like I want to see the study of like rebounding, like so trampoline squishy versus like floor hard. I want to see that study. Basically like the main question here is like, okay, well, we know that, let's explain it. We know that we body can grow more bone by putting stress on the bone. So whether that is through weight training, whether that's through absorbing impact. And the way that this happens is that when there's enough force being put on the bone, you're going to create osteoblasts, which are going to create new bone. So the main question here is like, okay, well, on a rebounder, are you absorbing enough force to really, stress that bone enough, especially compared to when you're landing on the earth? The other part of this is muscle mass. So we understand how you build muscle. Essentially, it's very similar to how to build bone. If you put your muscle under resistance, under enough stress, it will create micro tears, and then your body will basically inflame. You're going to rebuild all of those little spots. The inflammation will go down. You will have more muscle mass. And I think a lot of people get confused because if you jump around a lot on a rebounder or in general, you might be sore, but you didn't necessarily build muscle mass because are you taking your muscles through a loaded range of motion? For instance, with a bicep curl, this woman loves showing off her biceps, right? So when we curl the weight up and down, we're coming into a shortened and a lengthened position. We're putting stress on that muscle in those positions. That is going to actually give enough stimulus if you're loading it enough or doing enough reps, whatever, to actually build new muscle. So this woman got that muscle doing something else, not rebounding, probably strength training. And I've said it so many times, I just cannot get on board with any type of content that dissuades women from strength training because here it comes, the monthly osteoporosis chat. Women are 4 times more likely to develop osteoporosis than men. A lot of this has to do with the fact that we are traditionally just smaller framed, so we will have less bone density to even start with. A lot of this also comes down to the fact that women who go through menopause will have very sharp changes in their hormonal production. We'll give an example of one, specifically estrogen, which has a lot to do with maintaining your bone density. So you end up seeing a lot of osteopenia or osteoporosis. Honestly, you're seeing it earlier and earlier with women, unfortunately. So this is why, you start losing bone density around 30. So this is why I will never, ever, ever support any content that tells women they shouldn't be strength training. So this is a net negative.
Your glutes will stand out from the crowd and grow significantly if you incorporate an upper and side glute day into your routine. A lot of people ignore their medius and minimus and wonder why their glutes aren't standing out, especially compared to their hamstrings and their quads. Although it's so important to build the gluteus maximus, you are not doing yourself any favors by ignoring 2 out of the 3 glute muscles. You've probably heard of the term bubble butt, and if you actually think about what a bubble butt really looks like, you'll notice that there is a lot of muscle mass concentrated on the upper end of the glutes. This logic is what I modeled my entire glute growth journey after. I often hear complaints where people know that they have big glutes, they just feel like it doesn't look that way due to their proportions. The good news is that you don't have to stop hitting your quads or hamstrings to make your glutes stand out. Pay a little more attention to your medius and minimus and you should start seeing the difference between your glutes and your legs. And don't let anyone discourage you from doing what you know is right for your body. We're constantly hearing people say, oh, stick to the basics, do the compound movements. And while the basics are super valuable, there's no reason to be neglecting 2 out of 3 gluteal muscles. I hope you are so sore.
All right, I actually don't really have any issues with any of the voiceover that this woman is saying. I think there's some stuff we could get into it to explain it more, but that's not why I wanted to show you this video. Here's where I have an issue that I would just want to point out. Where's your face, girl? Are we in witness protection? It's giving Samara from The Ring. Anyone? Fun fact, The Ring was the first scary movie I ever saw in theaters. I was in 7th grade. I went with one of my best friends, Katie Treratola, in the middle of the day. There were only 2 other girls in the theater, and we were talking to them before the movie started, and they were like, yeah, we tried to watch it last week, but we got too scared in the first 10 minutes and we left. And then the movie started and they did it again, and it was only the 2 of us in the theater, and I didn't sleep for a week. Shout out to Katie. Okay, you see this kind of faceless or headless trend that sounds insane, but once I point it out, you're not gonna be able to unsee it. You see it in the women's online fitness space. Just this faceless or headless being with a small waist and a huge ass. And here's the thing. In a space and a society where women are already so objectified, I don't know. I kind of just feel like it's not doing it. I do feel like this type of content does women a disservice, especially because this woman is very smart, it sounds like. It sounds like she knows what she's talking about. So honestly, I think this could all just be fixed by getting the hair out of your face, showing that you are a human being that should not be objectified, maybe changing a few angles of what you're filming here and there. Because here's the thing, like, if you want to show off your small waist and your huge ass, more power to you. But in an industry where you quite literally don't need an ounce of education to enter, and so many people do just kind of rely on the way that their body looks, I think that there's something to be said about standing out and, you know, showing off your brain too. And you can continue, like I said, continue to show off your body. I don't like bodily autonomy, do what you want, right? But to me, I think that this would resonate a lot more if she just like showed her face. So anyway, I think this is still a net positive. Like the message here is great. That's just something that me personally, again, these are all just my opinions, I think would serve people better, specifically women.
Men automatically are an authority figure. That's why there are men that have made a career on social media plastering a woman's video and just going like this.
Just him green screen, and it's like the first 10 seconds, some poor fucking influencer girl.
Your content that you're making on your own is not doing well. You're using somebody else's content so that you can grab attention and then establish yourself as smarter than this person.
Yeah.
And like, they do know what they're talking about to a certain extent. They're just delivering it in a way that I find to be gross. The thing that pisses me off is when they're like, yeah, that's a good workout. What the fuck are we doing here?
Yeah, they don't give them any credit.
I don't know who it is. Like,
Tale as old as time.
yeah.
Damn, not the squat university call out. Holy shit. I know I'm not a man, but I also realize that I do one big old piece of commentary content a month. You're watching it right now. And I actually don't disagree with what this is Kelly Matthews. I don't disagree with what she's saying by any means, because I think there's actually a lot of nuance in how you approach commentary content. And from here on out, I am literally just going to speak for myself because I don't want to speak for anybody else. I used to do a lot of like review videos. I already said I privated most of them. And I also used to do a lot more commentary content, like just at the beginning of my YouTube career, I guess we'll call it. And the reason I did this, honestly, was like it gets clicks and it works. Let's be honest. Even to this day, this is always my highest performing video of the month. But at some point I had to step back and I was like, okay, well, why am I on YouTube? Like why am I here? Why am I making videos? So the core pillars of why I'm here are threefold: to educate, to have a creative outlet, and to potentially drive people over to my business. Let's just be real. So if it's not doing one of those three things, I don't make the video. Let's take this one, for instance. Does it educate you? I hope so. Because that's the bucket it's falling under. I try to be really selective with the content that I choose to make sure that not only month by month, I'm not just like talking about the same thing, but also trying to choose content that I have something to add. A lot of people send me things and I'll just kind of reply back. I'll be like, hey, like I don't really have anything to add here, so I'm not going to include it, but thank you so much for sending it to me. So this video falls into the educational part of things. It just happens to be a commentary video, which I try to only do once a month because I don't want to be known for that. The second pillar, does it fill my creative bucket? Fuck no. I hate editing these. If you don't know, I do everything myself for my YouTube page. Like I script, I edit, I film it, I schedule it, I create the thumbnails. Like I don't hire anything out as of now. This would be something I would hire out because it's the same formula every month, right? Even if I change the ranking system to try and make it exciting for me, it's not fun to edit. I like this part, I like the filming part, but everything else that goes into it does not fill the creative bucket. I will hire this out one day. And then does it drive people to my business? Maybe, but I'm not gonna bank on it. I personally, like, even though I try to come across just not like fully a negative bitch in these videos, but like, I don't know, this wouldn't necessarily seal the deal of me being like, I should go work with this person. So yeah, so by those three pillars, I need to make sure that this is educational. So I see what she's saying of like people who are just like, that's a good workout. Like, yeah, that's not helpful. You're just trying to put a pretty girl on your page so people click on it and you're using that to get views. So I don't know. I just wanted to kind of include this because I think for you guys too, part of the education part of these videos is how to like spot bullshit. And I think this gives you another lens to look through. I really like when Squat University popped up, I was like, oh fuck, he does kind of do that. And do I think he's the worst offender? No. But there are times where like he literally just has a video of a girl squatting from behind and then just goes into kind of talking about something like adjacent that like didn't really have anything to do with the original video. So I see it. I'm just giving you tools to sift through the bullshit out there. So we're gonna say this is a net positive. Let's read this text. Girls, I'm bored. Tell me the fixation meal you've had that will get me snatched for summer. I'm not talking Greek yogurt and berries. I'm talking a yummy meal that you couldn't stop eating, but it's also healthy and helps you lose weight. I'm going to say this, and you guys are watching fitness content, which means you probably have an interest in fitness related things and you probably know this. But when I tell you right now that there are people out there who don't know this, I'm not lying to you. I've had this conversation with people. A healthy meal will not inherently cause weight loss, okay? If you eat a salad, that doesn't mean you will lose weight. And there are people out there who believe that. I'm not shaming those people. I'm instead going to shame the education that we currently have around nutrition and making healthy choices. We already talked about how fat loss occurs. It occurs by being in a caloric deficit. I definitely think one of the things that you can do to help with your weight loss goal is to build out a toolbox of go-to meals that hit your macro goals or your calorie goals that are still yummy and, keep you satiated and that you really actually enjoy. Because I know the thing we all think about is like unseasoned chicken with steamed broccoli and rice. And you don't have to eat that way to lose weight. So I don't know. Is this a net negative or a net positive? No offense to this creator. I'm going to say net negative only because I think it is actually really important, the verbiage and like the words we use when we talk about food. And this puts food into kind of like a moral good or bad category. And I don't think that's helpful. So we're going to say net negative, but no shade to this girl. I feel like it's been a while since we've had a ladder ad on here. Let's read what this says. How are you dropping the belly and arm fat? Me, in 2 weeks you'll feel it. In 4 weeks you'll see it. In 8 weeks, everyone will start asking for the workout secrets. You just have to start. It didn't answer the question. This feels like two different ads that accidentally got smushed together. Look, we're including this to remind you that ladder sucks. It's lazy marketing. They don't actually care about you because if they did, they would stop pulling this bullshit. Yeah, anyway, this is a net negative.
Why does this sound like a threat? If you can happily do 15 to 30 minutes of stepping to nowhere for the rest of your life, then I love this for you. But I think it's important to remember she's getting a commission on that. The more you repeat the exact same workout, the less results you're gonna get. Google progressive overload. That's why there's no one best workout. Your body doesn't know what the moves are. It only responds to stimulus. Also, for what it's worth, I've never seen a certified Pilates teacher post anything like this. This is what 10 minutes. Where did you get that? Put it back! The pre-runway glute routine is genetics. Respectfully, this sounds like AI word salad. I can say numbers too. 75, 420, 6, Cicero, Lipschitz. Not only is this a really fucking weird thing to admit to out loud, I want to remind you that fat phobia is a conservative ideology. Busy girls, shy girls, greedy girls. Ah!
You may recognize Laura from the first episode of the Fit Down Chat series. She always comes up with funny things to say that I could only dream of coming up with. But there's actually one thing that she quickly mentioned that I want to talk about, and this is why the video is in here. The body doesn't know what the moves are. It only responds to stimulus. I get questions a lot of can you build muscle with kettlebells? Can you build muscle with dumbbells? Do I need to be using machines? Do I need to be using barbells? Your body doesn't know what the tool is that you're using. It just knows that you're taking things, muscles specifically, through full ranges of stretched, loaded motion. Your body doesn't know if you're using dumbbells, free weights, bricks, backpacks filled with bricks. It's literally just responding to the stimulus that it's receiving. And then those stimuli produce different adaptations. Now, what matters a lot more than the tool you're using if you have a specific goal is your programming. But that's a topic for a whole nother video. This is a net positive.
Can't call you up when it's late at night. Can't call
So in case you didn't see it, the text on the screen says, proof that at-home workouts are effective. Since we saw this woman go from a larger size to a smaller size, I'm gonna assume that effective to her means weight loss. And you know what? Congrats, girl. That is amazing. She found something that she could stick to, got the results she wanted. It's effective. So this is another kind of going back to what Laura talked about with like, your body doesn't know what you're doing, it just knows the stimulus. This is another thing I get questions about all the time. Can I build muscle at home? Can I get results at home? Are at-home workouts effective? Yes, but it depends on the workout that you're doing. Oh, another big one is like, what are the best exercises I can do at home to build my glutes? It's the same exercises that you would do at the gym. I think what people are really asking here is without equipment, maybe, and that's a completely different topic. Where you do your workout doesn't matter. What matters is the programming. What matters is the stimulus that your body is receiving. Even if you have limited weights at home, like some medium and some heavy bells, you can absolutely, if your programming is smart and strategic, hit certain goals. So I'm gonna say this is a net positive. Let's break this down. Overall, I like what this video is bringing to the table. Basically, it's showing the people who menstruate go through typically like a little bit more complex energy flows and like how they're feeling throughout the month. And it gives you some ideas on how you can adapt your training. What I really do like about this video, aside from that, is also the fact that she's still lifting weights the entire time. I think a lot of the cycle syncing content that I have an issue with, there's two main things. We'll start with the first thing, is that a lot of it ends up being like, you can only strength train 1 week out of your month because otherwise your bones are going to disintegrate into sand and you just need to be doing Pilates and low impact and da-da-da. Like, you can still strength train your entire cycle if you want to. So the other issue that I have with like cycle syncing content though is that, you know, this kind of goes through like ovulation and the follicular phase and the luteal phase, and they're giving more like hard and fast, like this is where you'll have more energy. This is where you'll need to drop weight. But actually, and studies support this, everyone's cycle is different. And I think the bigger message that we should be sending out is that, you know, if you want to be syncing your workouts to your cycle, you need to be tracking yourself because your specific energy levels and how you feel are going to be different than anybody else. We really have not had enough consistency in terms of results with studies to like have one size fits all cycle syncing recommendations. Right now, the recommendation is just you should listen to your body and figure out with your cycle where your energy levels are. And that's it. So overall, I think this is a net positive. I also understand it's like one piece of short form content. You can't get everything out in that one piece of content, but there is a lot more nuance to this than is being shown. All right, we're at the last one. Let's do it.
I'm pissed off. And this is going to be a bit of a rant. My 87-year-old mother fell in her memory care unit from dementia and broke her hip and had to undergo a total hip replacement yesterday. And I 100% guarantee you she never once thought of how can I prevent osteoporosis or how can I not fracture or even how can I prevent dementia. Her mother had horrible dementia. Never entered her mind. What can I do to not have this? And when I scour the data and the recommendations from all of these agencies that are charged with the protection of our health, I am absolutely shocked by the lack of information around prevention for diseases specific to women, meaning that affect women more than men. Men get dementia, men get osteoporosis, but women get them much, much more. They talk about rolling up rugs so grandma doesn't trip. They don't talk about strength training, protein, creatine. My mother dieted her entire life. She was always fighting to be a smaller person. Her exercise, when she could do it, was jogging. There's nothing wrong with my mother's heart. This is the consequence. She is dealing with sarcopenia and extreme frailty before she fell. It's too late for her, but it's not too late for me or my daughters or any of you who are watching. We need to change our mindset from thin to strong. I don't want to fall and break, and I'm doing everything in my power to keep that from happening. I'm lifting heavy. I'm cutting back on alcohol. I'm prioritizing protein and plants. and I am not getting on the scale. I want a bigger body. I want a stronger body. I want a stronger mind, and I want a stronger heart. I don't want the last decade of my life to be plagued with pain, frailty, or loss of cognition.
You know, I had 2 grandparents now that were perfectly healthy, fell, broke a hip, within a year were dead. Decline happens really quickly when you lose your independence. My mom, before she retired, was a geriatric physical therapist and saw it all the time. She ended up, when she retired, she was treating people younger than her who had total hip replacements, total knee replacements due to falls. I understand the pressure to look a certain way, especially as a woman. I also understand that in our society and the way that, you know, life is set up, especially in my country, it's really difficult to even find the time to prioritize exercise. And I just understand, like, all of this is hard in general. And this is also why I will never sit here and say, you have to do these things. You have to strength train. You have to prioritize protein and plants. Like, I will never sit here and say you have to do something. I'm going to sit here and give you the pros and cons, lay out the risk versus reward. It's up to you to decide what you want to do with that information and if it's worth it in either direction. If you absolutely hate strength training, if you just care about being as thin as possible and you've decided that you're going to risk those negative health outcomes later in life, okay, bodily autonomy, that's your choice. And there's no but there. Like, that's your prerogative. I personally, though, will not shut up about the risks and continue educating because I think there are far too few people in this space actually talking about it. So this is a net positive. And with that, that is the end of the video. Whew, it is, I gotta tell you guys, it is 100 degrees in New York today. It's like a very, very big heat wave. The AC is right here, so I can't turn it on. So I'm sweating. So we need to go now. But as always, before you go, if you enjoyed this video, I would love for you to give it a thumbs up. Make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on future videos, and I will see you in the next one.